All right. My name is Kelly Mann, and I'm the Director of Programs with A Time to Heal. I wanted to just start off by thanking our title sponsor, Nebraska Cancer Specialists. They sponsor all of our Create Your Best Life events, including our event today. So you can check them out at nebraskacancer.com. Joining us today, we have Dr. Jeannie Hannan. Jeannie Hannan is a 16-year breast cancer survivor with a passion for wellness. She is an associate professor and program director for the Master of Science in Wellness and Health Promotion Management at Nebraska Methodist College. Jeannie is an American College of Lifestyle Medicine certified professional, a national board certified health and wellness coach, and holds several certifications through the American College of Sports Medicine. Jeannie is also the president of Lifestyle Wellness, her private health and wellness coaching business. Thanks for joining us today, Jeannie. And I forgot to mention that we are going to be doing a giveaway. Sorry to interrupt, Jeannie.
That's okay.
We are going to be doing a giveaway at the end of today's event. So we have these plant-based diet for beginner books. Jeannie highly recommended them in our last event last month. And so at the end of this session, we'll draw some names and we'll send those out this week to those that win. We do have 5 books, and so we'll select 5 winners from today's participants. Thanks again, Jeannie.
Thank you, Kelly. So actually, and just another plug for the book, the author of this book is Gabriel Miller, and he was a Cornhusker football player who lost like 100 pounds when he switched to a plant-based diet. So he's got Nebraska ties as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, I think. So I do have a PowerPoint just because it was easier to put some recipes and things together. And let's see here. I think the only other thing on here that I wanted to point out is that I am not a dietitian. So I won't or can't assess your diets or prescribe you a diet, but I can do education. I am a health educator, so I can provide education, provide recipes, provide ideas. I can coach people through behavior changes. But I am not a dietitian. And as just our little disclaimer, none of the information should be used as a substitute for medical or dietetic advice. Okay, so just a couple quick objectives. I'll share some of my favorite plant-based recipes. And then if you have some recipes that you really love and you think, oh, maybe this could be healthier, or I have no idea how to make it healthier, we can as a group look at it and see if we can figure out some ways to make it healthier. This is just a quick little review from last week or last month. We really highlighted the American Institute of Cancer Research and the World Cancer Research Fund recommendations for cancer prevention and survivorship. And the ones here in green are the ones that were related to nutrition. So eat whole grains, veggies, fruits, and beans. Limit your fast foods, limit red and processed meat, limit sugar sweetened drinks, limit alcohol consumption, and then don't try to use your supplements to prevent cancer survivorship or to prevent cancer. And they also suggest getting your vitamins from your foods if you can. And this is just kind of the main thing to remember is try to eat the rainbow. If you eat the rainbow of fruits and vegetables, you will likely get all the nutrients that your body needs. Okay, and remember, we do have superpowers in our fork. Our fork, our spoons, our knives, actually. But one of the things for me, being a cancer survivor and always having a passion for wellness, being in the field of wellness, always interested in nutrition. But you know, there's so many things with our cancer journeys that are out of our control. And the one thing, or one of the things that I can control is what I put in my mouth. So I was always searching for what is truly the healthiest diet to prevent recurrence. And so here's some of my favorite recipes out of the book that Kelly is going to draw from. And yours, the ones that she has are actually nicer than mine because they're spiral bound. Mine is not, so that'll be nice. This I made, and I have this is my picture. This was my breakfast yesterday. So this is the AM breakfast scramble out of the book, which it's a tofu scramble. And kind of my little things here. So the red are things that I don't use in the recipe. The blue are things I might substitute, and then the green are things that I add. So this recipe has tofu, which is kind of more your egg part, mushrooms, bell peppers. I always leave peppers out just because I don't like them. Vegetable broth or water, a little garlic powder, onion powder. And what I did yesterday in this, instead of the onion powder, was just I chopped up a green onion and put it in there. You can use yellow onions too. And then black pepper, spinach, and then I always add black salt. And if you were at my session last time or listened to it, I talked a lot about black salt. So it has that sulfur, it's got that egg flavor. So anytime I make anything that would substitute for egg or whatever, I always use the black salt. And I have a picture of it on the next page. Nutritional yeast, I use that a ton. So it's kind of the thing that when you go plant-based, it's kind of more your cheesy. People use it kind of as a cheese substitute. Not at all the same consistency as cheese, but it can be made into that cheesy flavor. And then sometimes I'll add turmeric to it as well. I did not yesterday, but sometimes I do. So these are some of the ingredients from that. This is the tofu that I use. It's the one of them that's available at Walmart where I shop. So this is the black salt. As you can see, it's not black at all. It's pink. And I buy mine on Amazon just because I was having trouble finding it in the stores, but I think it is available. The nutritional yeast, I use so much of it that I buy it by the pound. And again, I ordered off of Amazon, and I circled the fortified here. So it happens to be fortified. So it's got B12 in it. That's the one vitamin that any plant-based people, professionals will tell you that you do need if you go strictly plant-based, is B12. So this is actually fortified with B12. The bread that I like to use, I get it from Aldi's. It's this knock your sprouts off. So it's sprouted bread, has 2 grams of fiber in each slice. The nutritional yeast has 3 grams of fiber. And if you recall from last time, the one nutrient that I said like 97% of Americans are deficient on is fiber. Most people will say protein, it's fiber. This up on the top right is my unhealthy part of that breakfast, which was the spray. I can't believe it's not butter. And then the Simply Fruit jelly I put on there.
Jeannie, can you explain what sprouted bread means?
Well, that's a great question. It's very whole, I guess I should say. So it's not as processed as it's probably the most whole that you can get in bread. And when you do buy bread, so if you are trying to do the whole grain, make sure that it says whole grain on the ingredients. A lot of times you might see wheat bread. That doesn't mean it's whole grain. It can be very processed. So you always want to look at your ingredient list, and either you want sprouted or whole grain if you are looking to get those whole grains. This is something else I made this week out of the plant-based diet book. It's called Easy Enchilada Bake, but I made it, just rolled it into enchiladas. It's made so that you actually the recipe says you lay your tortillas down and then you put your filling stuff in more tortillas but I actually made it into enchiladas, and I do have a picture on the next page for you. These are some of the items that were in it. And so the tomato paste, I didn't have tomato paste, so I used tomato sauce. And typically what I'll do is I'll just Google and say, what can you substitute for tomato paste? And then the black beans, the recipe actually, it talks about just your dried beans that you would soak and cook. I used canned black beans. I typically use canned beans. I did use frozen corn. I'm trying to think what else. It was really good. I had been looking at it for a couple of weeks going, oh, I should make this. And it was actually delicious. So this is my picture. I had this for lunch yesterday. And so one thing to think about is this was a few days old. So this was leftovers. I forgot to take a picture the night I made it. I'm sorry about that. And on top of it is this sour cream that he out of that same book. So it's made with tofu, fresh squeezed lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, and onion powder. And then you can make kind of like a ranch out of it. And I did do that eventually too. So it had dried dill in it and pepper. And I highlighted the silken tofu because I used the tofu that I showed you on the page before, which was the extra firm. I didn't have silken, and it turned out just fine. And it was actually just really good. And I often, think, oh, I wish I had some sour cream. And so this is going to be my go-to from now on. It was really good. And I think so. I think one of the questions that came up from the last session was, well, how do you, what about recipes for people of one? Even though I'm married, my plant-based stuff is for one because my husband and I eat totally different. So I like to make things like that. And then I've got lunches or dinners for, that I can eat for a lot of the week. So this is something else I've made out of that cookbook. I forgot to put the picture of the cookbook on there, but it's on page 121. And it's, if you just get hungry for cake, it's like to eat how to make it out of a mug. A chocolate mug cake, and it's really good. It was really good, as I recall as well. I made it a while back, but it was good. And we will send you these so you don't have to write all these down. But these are some of my favorite sites to go to. So you don't even have to buy cookbooks. Like if you're wanting to try to eat more plant-based, and there's a ton out there. You don't have to even buy cookbooks. And Centers for Nutrition Studies, that's a great site to go to. So I have a plant-based nutrition certificate through them. That's T. Colin Campbell's, who was one of the lead researchers, or is one of the lead researchers in nutrition. He did the China study, if you've ever heard of that. And then Jane Esselstyn, this is a YouTube channel. So her dad is Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who is, he was a surgeon, and he was one of the first doctors that proved that you could actually reverse heart disease with plant-based nutrition. And so his whole family, I think that they switched like 40 some years ago when he came home and told his wife, okay, we need to go plant-based because I need to practice what I preach. And he and his wife are in their mid 80s. And he still works, he still consults with patients and things. His wife is in these YouTube, it's Jane and her mom that do these cooking demonstrations, and they're hilarious. So I highly, if you like to watch some of those things, I highly recommend Jane's YouTube channel with her and her mom. She also has a Facebook page too, and her and her mom are coming out with a new cookbook called something about women warriors. I don't remember the whole title, and it's coming out in August. And then Jane was also co-author of most of the cookbooks. Let's see. Oh, I thought I do have it here. Actually, it's her and her mom that did the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease cookbook. And so this is Jane and Ann's cookbook. Jane also has co-authored cookbooks with her brother, Rip, who has, oh goodness, Plant Strong is his, the things that he does. And then Forks Over Knives recipes. So Forks Over Knives is the, I don't know if there's a documentary, if you've never seen it, this is awesome, the Forks Over Knives. It's a great documentary if you're kind of on the fence of ooh, should I go plant-based or not. That's a great documentary to watch. And then Plant-Based Gabriel, even on his website, he has some recipes. Happy Herbivore, she has a ton of cookbooks out, but she's got a lot of recipes on her website. Plant Strong, this is Rip Esselstyn. Eat Plant-Based is another good site. And then So Many Cooks in the Kitchen and So Many Kids in the Kitchen. These are the So Many Cooks in a Kitchen, there's a group of Food for Life instructors. So they were trained through the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and they do classes called Food for Life. And several of them, of the instructors, do this cooking show, and they've got all their recordings out there. And two of Food for Life instructors are in Omaha. So how many of you are in Omaha or Council Bluffs? Okay.
I'm in Omaha.
Great. Okay. So we have a couple Food for Life instructors here in Omaha, Cody Stubbe and Melissa Sherlock. And then the So Many Kids in the Kitchen are kids of these. So there's 5 kids ages 5 to 13, I believe now, that do the kids show. So they're kids of these instructors, and it's awesome. They make their own recipes. They do videos, or they do the show, but they record all their shows. They're out there. They provide all the recipes for them too. So if anyone's got little kids or grandkids and you're like, oh, I can't go plant-based because of my kids, that's where I always refer people to is, check these kids out. This was one that I shared last time, because we talked about grilling. And so some of my favorite things, and I'm going to show you the recipe for the marinade here, but is to marinate the portobello mushroom caps. And then my husband will grill them if he's grilling burgers. And then I just basically make a burger out of it. And then the vegan carrot dogs. I know it sounds like it would not taste very good, but it honestly tastes like a hot dog, and it has consistency like a hot dog, and they're delicious. So if you really like hot dogs, and those hot dogs, just to remind you, are one of those processed meats that the American Institute of Cancer Research and World Cancer Research Fund say we shouldn't really eat at all, the processed meat. So try carrot dogs if you really like hot dogs. Just try it. So this is the recipe that I use for the marinade for the mushrooms. So the actual recipe is skewers, and there's a link to the recipe there. And but the marinade includes balsamic vinegar, but you can also use flavored vinegar. So is it Alicia? Is that how you say it? Alicia. Have you ever been to Old World Oil and Vinegar in Omaha? It's in Rockbrook Village.
I haven't been, but I know of it.
Okay. They have some delicious balsamic vinegars, all sorts of flavors. And sometimes I will kind of mix just regular balsamic and then my smoked balsamic with that in this marinade. And then it has soy sauce or tamari sauce, or you can also use Sprague's liquid aminos. That's very similar to soy sauce, garlic, cloves, and thyme, and salt and pepper. And then I just mix it up in like a Ziploc baggie, put my mushrooms in there and let them sit in there for a while. And then my husband will grill them. And this is the carrot dog. So this is the recipe for it. Again, there's a link. You don't have to write all this down. And I never ever put the pickled jalapeno juice in there. I don't like jalapenos. I don't like hot things, spicy hot. Trying to think. I think everything else I pretty much do put in there. Again, sometimes instead of soy sauce, I'll use the Bragg's liquid aminos, but and they're just really good. I highly encourage. So what I will do is I will usually so you boil your carrots and then you marinate them, and then you can grill them or whatever, throw them in the microwave. So I will usually cook up several of them at a time and then keep them. And then what I do is I just keep them in the marinade bag in my fridge, and I eat on them all week. So they really are good if you really like hot dogs.
We did have a couple comments in the chat box. And I know we might only have 1 or 2 people from Omaha, but I echo what Jeannie said about Old World. They have lots of really flavorful oils and vinegars. They do also have samples. So that's nice that you can sample all of them to see which one you like. One of the comments in the chat box just said, the Blue Zone Kitchen is a great cookbook.
Thank you.
And then Lindsay had a question. Any recommendations on the best nut-based milk?
Oh, great question. I usually use almonds, but almond or soy. And and I don't want to say it's best. It's just that like usually we do our grocery shopping at Walmart, and I can get a gallon of the almond milk for like $4. So, but I did buy some soy milk at Hy-Vee too. It's really what you like. I know that Brenda, I think she talked about, was it oat milk? I think she really liked because it's really creamy. A lot of people like the cashew milk. So I'd say just try them out and see what you like. It's usually best to do unsweetened because you're not getting all that extra added sugar in there, but totally up to you. Was there another question too?
Nope, that's it for
No,
now.
okay.
And I'll, I said it in the chat, but if you guys have questions, feel free to come off mute. We want this to be interactive based on questions that you guys have. You can also submit questions in the chat box and I'll moderate that throughout the session. Thanks, Jeannie.
Yeah, sure. So this recipe, this is actually, so it kind of was a chocolate hummus recipe, but I use it for like dip for fruits, or you could actually make it like pudding too. It's really good. So the initial hummus recipe was chickpeas, but I use cannellini beans a lot. They're white beans and they're just I don't want to say smoother maybe. Sometimes the chickpeas can get kind of dry, I think, but just in my own thing. But you can use when my friend makes the chocolate dip with black beans, or you can use Great Northern, really just any of those, the white beans or the black bean. And then dates. So I usually put 7 to 8 dates in it. You can use maple syrup as well. I typically try to sweeten things with dates. And one of the reasons is they still have the fiber in them. So if you look at fiber with dates versus there's no fiber in the maple syrup, but really, again, it's kind of up to you. Some people use agave for sweetener as well, but I usually try to do the dates. And then just cocoa, and and this is processed, so it's not the best, but I like the flavor of the Dutch processed cocoa. And then vanilla, and then plant-based milk, and again, just whatever consistency you like. And I have a Vitamix, which are super powerful blenders, and I just put it all in it and zoom it up. And again, whatever you're wanting to do with it, like, then you can change how much milk you put in it. And I can't even tell you how much, because I just dump it until it's what consistency I want. But it's really good. Or if you're really craving chocolate and just want something chocolate. I've also used it as frosting before. So you can do that as well. And then you can do it like puddings or like pumpkin as well. Basically the same thing, but it's adding pumpkin and not the cocoa. So, and I highly just say try things. I was telling Kelly before we started, I used to hate to cook before I went plant-based. I hated it, and I always had to have a recipe. But now that I'm plant-based, I'm not afraid to throw things together and just try it. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't turn out that best, but sometimes it does. And I don't know if it's just because I know that with the plans, it's not going to hurt you. I used to tell her I hate it. I was never, ever good at cooking meat because I never knew when it was done. And with fruits and vegetables, it doesn't matter if it's done. I mean, most of them you can eat raw. So I love to now try stuff. And this was the pumpkin as one of the things I did, just kind of like in the fall, messing around with that. This banana bread. So this is in the Forks Over Knives cookbook. And I love this banana bread, make it all the time. I even have, so one of my grandsons, one day they were over and I had a bunch of ripe bananas, which that's how I prefer them. The riper, the better, because I use them a lot in sweetening things. And he was like, Grammy, I think you should make some banana bread and have us over tomorrow. He wanted to come over for banana bread. So I made a couple loaves and took him one. And then when we checked with my stepson, we said, so how'd Kellen like the banana bread? And he said, well, he wants to know if there's more where that came from. So he likes the banana bread too. And so it's whole wheat pastry flour, mashed bananas, your baking soda, baking salt, pure maple syrup, unsweetened applesauce, plant-based milk, and vanilla. And so it's super easy. So you just combine the dry stuff. It says to sift them, but I don't sift it. I just mix it up and then combine the wet stuff and then just mix them together and throw them in the oven. And I always bake mine for like 60 minutes, but I like it kind of a little crusty on top a little bit. So highly recommend this recipe. Like I said, I make it all the time. And then energy bites, these don't even have, you don't cook them, and there's all sorts of recipes out there for energy bites, but this is one that I happen to like. So I just use old-fashioned oats, and then I always use almond butter, ground flaxseed. You can also put chia seeds. You can do both. You can do one, you can do the other, doesn't matter. Again, this one calls for maple syrup, but I will also use dates instead. You can use honey or agave. Vanilla, and then some vegan chocolate chips. And then I never put coconut just because I do not like coconut. So I don't ever put that in mine, but these are delicious. And most everyone likes them, whether they're plant-based or not. So most people love these, and it's a good little quick energy thing, easy to take somewhere, easy to make. You can make them in a few minutes.
And I can attest to this, that kids also usually like these. They kind of taste like a sweet treat.
Yes. In all sorts of ways. Again, just play with it. You can make them however you want. Basically, the nut butter is what holds them together. And then, well, the syrup would too, but they work fine with dates as well. So, and then these brownies I make a lot, but I also just make up the batter, I guess, if you will, and eat it like you would chocolate chip cookie dough. Not going to hurt you. There's no eggs in it. So it calls for chickpeas. Again, I typically use the cannellini beans. I use almond butter. With these, I usually put dates in it as well instead of the maple syrup. So usually when I substitute, I usually use like 7 to 8 dates. And one tip, if you like, so I never ate dates ever before I went plant-based. Now I buy them. The place I found best to buy them is Sam's, because you get like a 2-pound container for like $8. And so that's just one tip if you belong, and maybe Costco. I don't know. I don't have a Costco membership, but Sam's. You can usually get them at the stores too, but they're usually a little thing for like $5 or something. This one takes quite a bit of vanilla because they're the blondie brownies. And then what I do if I'm eating it as cookie dough, I just don't put the baking powder in, but I do put the baking soda in. I don't know why it went, I don't think it would hurt, but, and then some vegan chocolate chips. But they're really good, just even made as brownies or made as the dough to eat it. Someone have a question or comment? Oh, okay. This black bean dip is from one of my Food for Life instructor friends makes this all the time. It's actually a Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine recipe. And all it is a can of black beans, a cup of salsa, and then cumin if you want, and that's it. And it's awesome. And people love it. She made it and brought it to one of our wellness committee meetings one time at the college, and the students loved it as well. She's offered it at different student events and things. So super easy. One of those things that'd be great to take to if you're going to a potluck or something, or having a party, a picnic, whatever. It's awesome. And then hummus. So you can buy hummus pretty much anywhere. It's really hard to find hummus without oil. One place in Omaha that does sell some without oil is Natural Grocers. But you can also make your own hummus really easy and cheap. So again, the recipes usually call for chickpeas. You can substitute cannellini if you want. This one just has garlic, juice of a lemon, cumin. I usually cut the cumin. I put cumin in it, but we'll cut it kind of half because I don't like a lot of cumin. And then the Bragg's liquid aminos and water or vegetable broth, and super easy. And there's all sorts of different ways you can do it. You can do like roast garlic and put it, roast your garlic and put it in there. You can do, this was something I was thinking about the other day, and then on the So Many Cooks for the in the Kitchen, they actually did it, but like caramelize some onions or grill, and then put those in there. I think that would be really good. You can use the tomatoes. What are those called? Oh, goodness, sorry, my brain's escaping me. Jeez Louise. Anyways, you can kind of play with it, make however you want. And again, these kind of bases are the bases of where like the chocolate ones and sweet ones came from too. This is, go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, we did have one question in the chat. It says, what is your favorite plant-based burger recipe? This person says that they've tried a few, but haven't found one that the whole family likes.
That's a really good question, because I haven't found one that I really like either, that to make myself. So right now, my go-to for myself is the mushrooms, the portobello mushrooms, but sorry, I don't have a good answer. One of the things though, and it's not necessarily a health food, but if you're trying to get people to eat a veggie burger versus a hamburger, or like the Beyond Burgers or the Impossible Burgers, they do still have a lot of fat and calories in them because they have a lot of oil and things in them. However, they are plants, so they don't have that risk of increasing cancer like your red meats would. So they're great, as most plant-based or lifestyle medicine people would tell you, a good transition food to help people transition from, if they're very much meat eaters and they're trying to transition more to more plant-based. So those are good. Or if I'm out, traveling or something, and the only option you have is fast food, I will try to find a Burger King and get their Impossible Burger. Again, it's not necessarily healthy, but it's a better choice. So I'm sorry, I don't have a great recipe yet for that. This Alfredo sauce, if you like Alfredo, this is made out of cauliflower, and I love it. Again, I make it a lot. And so it's fresh, or I've used frozen cauliflower, and then you just boil up your cauliflower. And then in the Vitamix, you mix like nutritional yeast, garlic, plant-based milk, cashews. And sometimes, so cashews are in a lot of recipes that are creamy. So because you can make them creamy, if people have, they're higher in calories. So you can also substitute, if you want, like cannellini beans for cashews. You can do that in some of the creamy things. Onion powder, salt, and lemon juice. And then with the nutritional yeast, one of the things I always dump a lot in. I don't ever follow the recipe. I always put way more than than recipes say. I know my Food for Life friends, they will always say too, with garlic, they usually put way more garlic in their recipes than what the recipe calls for, just because they like garlic. So again, this is very good and it's one on the Centers for Nutrition Studies website.
We did have somebody not respond to the burger question in the chat, and they said it's not a recipe, but they like the Don Lee Chipotle black bean burgers, and they find them at Costco. So again, that was Don Lee Chipotle black bean burger.
Thank you. I think that they used that one at our college. I think that I know that she gets some that she makes there. Thank you for sharing that. This is a no tuna salad recipe, and this one again is from the Nutrition Studies. And so the mayo part is cashews, garlic, apple cider vinegar, and water. And I often use that recipe for, like, say if I'm making a pasta salad that you want kind of that mayo base, I'll use this. And then sometimes I will, instead of the cashews, I'll use the cannellini beans. And so I use that part of this recipe a lot in different things. And then the tuna part is the chickpeas, capers, celery, salt, and pepper. And I never put capers or celery in it. It just happened, like, even when I ate tuna, all I ever did was tuna, mayo, salt, and pepper. So I'm just kind of sometimes like things plain, but And again, I often use the cannellini beans. And as you can tell, they're probably my favorite bean. I usually have like 4 cans of them in my cupboard at any time. This potato soup is delicious. And what is on top of there is like tempeh bacon. So that's not real, that's not bacon, but, and this came from Simple Vegan Blog. I don't use the oil in it. All that she uses it for is to saute her onions. You can do that with water or vegetable broth. You don't, and especially now with all the nonstick cookware, you don't need the oil. Flour, I often don't use, sometimes I'll use that, but I often will just, that's just to kind of help thicken it up a bit. And I will often just use cornstarch. And then I usually always just use vegetable broth. And then it calls for the unsweetened plant milk, salt, pepper, potatoes. And again, nutritional yeast, I dump a lot in. So mine's more like a cheesy potato soup, but it's really good, super easy, like just very, very easy to make. I think that's the other thing I like about cooking plant-based. It's easy. Like most of it doesn't take much time. This is another recipe I found that I really liked, and it's they say it's like the Panera black bean soup. So if you've ever had Panera black bean soup, and it's really good as well. I, again, don't put the peppers in. And then I use vegetable broth instead of chicken bouillon cubes, but super good. And again, there's a link to the recipe. So all of these are free, all of these that I've been sharing with you. And then did any of you bring any recipes that you want to take a look at?
A question in the chat is not answering your question, Jeannie, but we'll get back to that. So
Okay.
one of the questions, it says, is there a brand name for nutritional yeast?
That's a great question. They come in all sorts. You can get all sorts. I'll back up to the one that I use. But you can buy it in, I mean, there's a ton of different ones. And I don't know, I can't tell you that there's a big reason that this is the one I buy, but I do like this brand. I use it. Hold on, sorry, there we go. Anthony's is the one that I buy. And I buy it off of Amazon, and I think it's about, I just ordered some yesterday. I think it was like maybe $14 for this pound. And that'll last me, I think it said I last bought it in May, but I use a lot of it again. I don't follow the recipes for that at all. I just dump it.
Another question is, can you give us some advice on using tofu in recipes? I know you talked a little bit last month on tofu, and it was mentioned in a couple of your recipes today, but just general advice when cooking with it, perhaps?
Usually it will be like, it's a good idea to squeeze out the moisture. So you can either squeeze it if you have a tofu press, you can do that. You can also, another trick is if you don't have a tofu press and it's something like, so like the egg, the scramble, you know, you kind of want your, I mean, typically like your scrambled eggs would be kind of dry when you're done. So that I do press it. But if you don't have a press, you can take like 2 plates and put your tofu. So put the bottom of the plate on it. So make your regular plate face up, put your tofu on it, put the other plate so that the bottom of the plate is on it. And then you can even set books or something heavy on it to just squish it down a bit. And that's just to get the moisture out. Again, it's not a big deal. Tofu also will take on flavor of what you're putting with it. So it can be used to make sweet things. It can be used to make savory things as well. Trying to think what else. So I don't have a lot of tips. And again, I don't ever, like this recipe called for silken. I didn't have silken. I just used that extra firm and it worked just fine. I think the silken's just softer and maybe has more moisture in it. I believe that's how with the firmness is go. I'm not actually like a tofu expert, but I do like it. Another soy thing that I use are called soy curls, and they come kind of dehydrated, and I get them at natural grocers. And then what you do is you just hydrate them with water or vegetable broth or whatever. You just basically put them in a bowl, pour your water in there, your vegetable broth, let them sit, and then they get soft, and then you can brown it. Like I just put it in a skillet and then crisp it up, and it's like crispy chicken. And I do use, there's a Trader Joe's spice that's called chickenless, I think, something like that, chickenless spice. So I put that spice in it, and that kind of gives it the chicken flavor, and it's like crispy chicken. So it's really good if you like chicken fried rice. So that I just make brown rice and frozen mixed vegetables, and put those in there, and warm them up, and then the tofu or the tofu things, and then that's my chicken fried rice. Or I made some of that up the other day, and put it just on a salad too, so it was like putting chicken in my salad. So that's another option. It's soy,
So the question that Jeannie had earlier was, are there recipes that you guys, comfort recipes or just go-to recipes that you guys have that, maybe they're not completely plant-based, or maybe there are certain ingredients that are a little less healthy. And you don't have to have a specific recipe per se, but, a general type of food that you like to eat, love to eat, your family likes to eat, that you're wondering how could you substitute healthier ingredients for. So if anybody has any of those that would be willing to share, you can come off mute. You can throw something in the chat box. I'll start us off. It's not necessarily a question, but you had talked about that mayo that you use as a substitute with your tuna salad or pasta salad. Have you done that with a potato salad as well, as my question, Jeannie? Or
I think I have. So one of the things, another thing I've sort of used that for is to make like deviled potatoes. So like at Easter, instead of deviled eggs, you take little potatoes and cook them, and then slice them and just dig a little bit out. And then I use that mayo. And then I always like my favorite is like the Better Homes and Garden deviled eggs, because it has vinegar in it and mustard. And so I've used that mayo, and then and kind of mixed it. So then mix it with the insides of the potatoes, and then that's what you're filling for those. So you could really do the same thing with like a potato salad. Just use that mayo recipe and do that. And what I typically do with my macaroni salad is I'll use like whole wheat pasta, and then use that mayo stuff, and then I'll slice up cucumbers and tomatoes and onions and and then kind of throw it all in there. Use some salt and pepper, and maybe garlic salt.
Thanks for sharing. Does anybody else have any recipes or go-tos that they are wanting to make a little more healthy or more plant-based that they'd like to share?
Or even just other comments or things you like?
Yeah, that's true. We've had a couple good recommendations in the chat box. So perhaps you've tried to go a little more plant-based, or perhaps you're on a completely plant-based diet and you have, experiences, maybe some successes, maybe some failures that would be helpful to share with those that are at the beginning of this journey. We got a quiet group this morning.
We do. What about even your thoughts about plant-based? Or I guess another question I would have for you is, would something like having a class or session where you like set goals and stuff each week, would that be helpful for people? Are you trying, or maybe where's everybody at? Are you even wanting, is this even an idea, something you want to do, is go more plant-based? Are you kind of already starting it? Are you already there? Are you no way? Like what's your thoughts on the whole?
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm from Grand Island.
Hi, Rachel.
I've tried plant-based a few times with my family, and it's tough to incorporate with my husband and my son and everybody liking something. So I tend to eat more plant-based than they do. And that's why I asked about the burgers, because it's generally a texture thing with the burgers, not so much as a flavor thing with them.
Okay.
And yeah, because the black beans sometimes it gets that mushy texture and then it just offsets them. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I know that starting slow as far as including fiber just with the digestive thing is very good to do.
Mhm.
You don't want to have the adverse effects of adding too much fiber at once if you're not used to it. So, but no, I'll have to say I'm a dietitian. So
Yay.
yeah, so I've been a dietitian for almost 20 years, but I'm with the geriatric population at a nursing
Oh,
home. So, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer last April and finished my last treatment this May. So, newly survivor. So, just trying to learn more and always learning more. So.
yes. Awesome. Thank you for sharing and congratulations on finishing your treatment.
Thank you.
Here's to many years of survivorship. Yeah, I would say so texture wise, if it's a texture thing, then the Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers, they're very, very like the Beyond Burgers, you can hardly tell that and they even sort of look like they bleed because they have beet juice in them. So they almost even look like they're, like your hamburger would bleed your red blood, that they're bleeding beet juice, but they're very good.
These two G's. I have a question
Go ahead.
about so like there's kind of like trends, I feel like where tofu has the estrogen in it and like the texturized vegetable protein, like too much. So I've been a vegetarian for 30 years since I was 15. And so I kind of just watched the trends a little bit. So like currently, as far as would you just tell me if I'm right, that there isn't, that estrogen is not really from tofu or those processed like Morningstar burgers and things like that, that texturized vegetable protein? Do you know anything about that?
Well, I can tell you, like with the tofu and things, the plant-based or the lifestyle medicine and plant-based experts will tell you that, especially if you're sticking more towards the edamame, the more whole, the tofu itself, that they have found that the research since like 2009 has, because I was told the same thing. I was diagnosed in 2006 and was told, oh, like stop drinking soy milk, stop, all that, because my cancer was estrogen and progesterone positive. But what the research has been showing is kind of the opposite, that those people that eat more, that have a more soy-based diet, that they actually have less incidence of breast cancers than those that don't eat it. So in fact, I guess they did it more on weight loss though, but the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine recently did a study and where it was they were really looking more at like menopause symptoms. And so the women had them incorporate a half a cup of soybeans, and they did non-GMO soybeans into their diet every day. And the women had reduced like hot flashes and menopause symptoms. And Rachel, as a dietitian, do you have anything to add regarding the soy?
Yeah, I know that the soy, as far as estrogen, it's encouraged to eat. I'm estrogen positive too, but it doesn't have the effects. So yes, definitely include that in your diet.
Thank you. Yep. And last time too, I had mentioned this Dr. Christy Funk, this, and that is one of her top foods that she suggests incorporating, and she's a breast surgeon. And so she's like, yes, incorporate soy. So I typically try to do like the tofu, soy milk, the soy curls, the edamame. Edamame is great snacks. You can even, if you're good at, I have not mastered roasting. Like I've tried roasting chickpeas and roasting soybeans, and I think I just need to stand there and watch it, because I either cook them too long or I don't cook them enough. And haven't mastered the exact timing of them, but
We did have
So
a
I-
question. Oh, go
yes.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I hope that helped, Lindsay. And thank you, Rachel.
We did have a question in the chat box. It says, can you talk a little bit about Bragg liquid? Am I saying that?
The Bragg's aminos.
Mhm.
Well, I guess I'm not super knowledgeable there, but we do have, like, I believe our proteins have aminos, and Rachel, I'm probably going to butcher this. You could probably do a much better job than me, but I use those in lieu of soy sauce a lot. Has less sodium in it. Tastes very much like soy sauce. So I use them. I use it a lot, but I'm not super, like, I'm not an expert on them. Sorry.
You opened yourself up, Rachel, to us referencing and asking you questions. You opened the floodgates. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Lindsay, and those that have put questions in the chat box. We still have more time if there are more questions that you guys have, certain specific questions, general questions. We welcome this to be kind of interactive and a discussion based on kind of where you guys are at. Elaine, did you have a question, or is it just you're off mute and we could just hear a little bit from you?
I do have a question, and I'm assuming that when you send out the link to review this, that the recipes that she presented today will be included.
Yeah,
Yes.
and some of those recipes, yeah, all that you saw on the screen will be included. And I'll just reference again, some of those where they had the page numbers are from the book that we're going to be giving away today. So at the end of our session, I will just in a little bit here, just announce the 5 names of those that were selected to receive that book. So that'll be a good resource as well. We will follow up this week with an email. That email will have this PowerPoint where you'll have links to all that Jeannie has discussed. You also include a link to that cookbook that we're going to be giving away. So if your name wasn't selected, it's on Amazon. You can purchase it there. And so if you have any follow-up questions, we can certainly address those in that follow-up email as well. Any other questions that anybody has that they'd like to get Jeannie's expertise on?
I have one comment. So when you talk about amino acids, you're talking about the building blocks of protein. So those are the chemical atoms of the protein, and there are 9 that your body can't make. So we need to get protein from animal or plant products. So soy is one of those that is a plant-based protein that is got all of the amino acids. So you don't have to combine it, like, I don't know if you know, like macaroni and cheese. So you have to eat the macaroni and the cheese to get all your amino acids, if that makes sense. So that Bragg's is a replacement because it's soy-based. So it contains all the amino acids in it. So it's called a complete protein.
Thank you, Rachel.
Is that help the question?
Yes, thank you.
So
I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I'm so glad you're here because, like I said, I am not a dietitian. And so I love it. We should just partner up and go on the road.
All right. Yeah. I was going to comment about the nut-based milks too. Just, read the labels, because like some almond milks only have 1 gram of protein, especially like your Breeze almond. So when you're looking at cow's milk or soy, they have 8 grams. So if you're trying to replace it to get some extra protein in your diet, some of those plant-based aren't going to necessarily have as much protein either in it.
Good point.
So
I would
Thanks.
think probably the oat probably wouldn't have as much protein either, would be my guess.
Right. Yeah, you just have to read the labels to compare. So
Thanks, Rachel. We really appreciate your expertise. Jeannie, did you have something else?
Yeah,
to
no,
add?
I was just going to say, speaking of oats, oats are one of those things that are great for helping lower cholesterol. So and you could, and I took a picture of mine this morning, but then I forgot to email it to myself to put it on there. But typically what I'll do with oats is I just use the regular old dried oats, throw them in a bowl. I'll throw on some cinnamon. I take a ripe banana and cut it up and then mush it in there for my sweetening. And typically I'll throw ground some flaxseed and put it on there and then do like a whole bunch of berries, whether it be raspberry, like right now I've got raspberries and black raspberries from my bushes in my yard, and then blueberries. And so then you just have a really high fiber, nutritious breakfast.
Thanks, Jeannie. We do have another question in the chat, but just since if people need to head out early, we're scheduled until 11:15 and we'll probably stay on until then. But just for sake of everyone's time and so forth, I'm going to go ahead and just announce the winners of the giveaway. Thank you all for joining us live. I know that we do record the events and there's a lot of convenience in watching it on your own time, but the interaction and the discussion and the questions are extremely helpful. And so thanks for joining us live today. I have selected 5 winners. The first one that I selected, the screen name on here is Bud, and I'm thinking it's perhaps just somebody else's screen name on there. So I don't know if you're able to come off mute to say who you are from our roster, but that was our first winner. Oh,
yes, that's Nancy Wingate.
Nancy, thank you, Nancy. I will send out.
And I'm from it's Southeast Nebraska. It's Adams, just south of Lincoln.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us, Nancy. I do have your
Thank you.
address. So you are the first winner. The second winner is Deborah. The third winner is Jean, if that's how you pronounce that. And then Rachel, and then Maxine, also from My Sister's Keeper. I see your email in the screen name there. So those are the 5 winners, and we'll go ahead and send those out this week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy.
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment when she was talking about the oats. I like to make the oatmeal in the morning and I put in sunflower seeds or even chop up some walnuts and put it in with some fresh fruit. I really like that. It really works well.
Yes, and super nutritious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and finish with a few of these questions that I see in the chat box. Feel free to keep submitting them. Like I said, we do go until 11:15 at Central Time Zone. We have some folks that are not in that time zone, but about 15 more minutes. So feel free to keep putting questions in and we'll get to the ones that we're able to. Question from Deborah just says, when you decided to go plant-based, how long did that transition take? And what hurdles did you experience? And so this is a really great question. I'm looking forward to the answer.
That is a great question. So I decided to go totally plant-based in like 2018. And part of that was, I can't even say I never ate a ton of meat, but I would go through spurts. And I suppose I probably ate a lot of chicken. And then there was a time where I ate a lot of hamburgers or whatever. And I really went, when I got introduced to lifestyle medicine and then started learning more and more about the research in plant-based nutrition is when I really decided that that's when I needed to do it. And it took the hardest part, and I'm still struggle sometimes with it, was cheese, cheese with the meat part wasn't too bad for me, but what I did do initially was I did like the Beyond Burgers. I would have my husband grill those out when he grilled. And so that was kind of like my transition food there. And then And even still, I do still eat cheese once in a while, especially if I'm somewhere and it's, for example, Father's Day, and I should have just taken my own food, but we went to my stepson's and he made a brisket, and then they had like mac and cheese and a cheesy potato casserole or cheesy potatoes, and I can't remember what else. So I ate the mac and cheese and the cheesy potatoes because for me that was the best option. But I try not to do dairy if I can. So I can say I probably still, I'm not 100%. I try to be, but I'm not always 100%. And I guess that brings up, strive for progress, not perfection, and don't beat yourself up if you really are wanting to do something, to do it and you eat meat or once in a while or whatever. Just strive for progress. And even if people don't want to go all the way, some people think it's all or nothing, and it doesn't have to be, because the more plants you eat, the healthier you're going. So even if you do one day where it's meatless Monday, or it's totally plant-based Monday, or and you transition more and more, that's a good way to transition as well. So I don't know if I totally answered your question. I basically started really deciding in 2018, and I would say now I'm 99% whole food plant-based. And again, there is a difference between whole food plant-based and vegan. So whole food plant-based is vegan, but vegan isn't necessarily whole food plant-based, because there are a ton of vegan junk foods out there, which I am bad about sometimes eating. Like I like the, oh my goodness, they're chips that are made out of chickpeas. I like to eat some of those sometimes. So those are my downfall now, I would say, or those kinds of things. And I'm just going to, so here's my progress, not perfection. Then I want to see people better, so I'm going to stop sharing. So I hope that helped answer. It's different for everyone, but like Rachel said, and like we talked about last time, is if you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, go low and slow, because you can have some effects going. If you go from eating what most Americans, the average American eats like 15 to 18 grams of fiber. And if you try to go from that to the recommended 25, 30 grams of fiber right away, you might have some stomach aches and things. So low and slow.
Thanks, Jeannie. Another question from the chat just says that they have a hard time eating beans due to their taste and texture. Any recommendations for overcoming this?
Due to the taste and texture. So it maybe, I don't know if you've tried incorporating them into like into say hummus or some of those like the dips, the dessert dips or things where it's not like you're eating an actual bean. I don't know if that would help, where it's smooth, or the brownies, like the blondie brownies. And again, I have found that the chickpeas can be dry. Sometimes they can make things drier, or like with the tuna, it can make it kind of dry. So that's where I usually use the cannellini beans. They're a little smoother when cooking. So that would be one thing I would maybe recommend to try. You can incorporate them in ways like that, and you're not really eating them like a bean. So your texture would be different. Anybody else have any suggestions on that?
Doesn't sound like anybody does. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Any questions in general? We're getting pretty close on time, so if there aren't any other questions, we can certainly end at this time. Anybody want to come off mute, or any other questions from the chat box?
Was this helpful or beneficial for people?
Yes, thank you. for
Very
your time.
helpful.
I was raised to be a good eater. And so I still like meat. but I am incorporating more plant. And someday I might be off meat, but I'm not yet.
Good. That's okay. You're making progress with incorporating more plants. So that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, we got lots of love in the chat, Jeannie. Lots of people saying thank you. Lots of people saying that they were very thankful for all the recipes and the examples, thankful for your time and education. So yes, I think a lot of people are agreeing that this has been very helpful.
Okay. Good, thank you. And Rachel, thank you again for your input and expertise.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think at that, we will close today. I'll follow up with an email this week with resources that Jeannie has so graciously offered. And if you guys have any follow-up questions or feedback or things that you didn't get answered, feel free to reach out and we can get those answers to you. Have a great Saturday, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.